You know, for decades, the United States military has been seen as this unbeatable global force, a real behemoth. But what happens when that behemoth gets locked in a fight with an opponent it should, on paper, completely dominate? Well, that's what we're digging into today, a real-life David and Goliath story that's unfolding right now.
And this is really the core question, isn't it? How can a military with a budget that's bigger than the entire economy of most countries find itself struggling against a nation that's spending a tiny fraction, less than 2% of that amount? It's more than just a surprise. This whole thing could seriously rewrite the playbook for modern war.
And this slide right here really just lays it all out. I mean, look at that. On one side, you've got the US, with nearly $1 trillion a year fueling its military machine. And on the other, Iran, with a budget that's, well, it's practically a rounding error in comparison. This is the ultimate underdog setup, but the stakes are global.
Okay, so this whole situation kicks off with a massive plot twist. After weeks of fighting, it's not the underdog asking for a timeout. No, it's the global superpower. The same president who promised it'd all be over quickly is now the one calling for a pause. A request that, by the way, Iran completely rejected.
So to really get how we got here, we've got to look at one of the core beliefs of the U.S. military: total control of the sky. For decades, in pretty much every conflict, the U.S. has owned the air. But this time, well, that solid foundation started to crack.
So picture this, it's March 19th, and this is the official word coming out of the White House, a super confident declaration of victory. The president is telling the world, hey, Iran's air defenses are toast. We have complete air domination. Those were his exact words.
But then, just a few hours after that big speech, a video pops up from Iran making this absolutely shocking claim. They said they'd actually hit an American F-35. We're talking about the invisible stealth fighter, the absolute crown jewel of U.S. air power. And for the very first time, this supposedly untouchable jet had been hit in combat.
So the big question is, how on earth did they do it? Well, this slide breaks it down pretty simply. See, the F-35 is designed to be a complete ghost to radar. But Iran played a different game. As you see in Step 1, they didn't look for the plane itself. They looked for its heat. Every jet engine, no matter how advanced, pumps out a ton of heat. And once their sensor spotted that heat signature, they could track it and fire a modified heat-seeking missile. It's a classic underdog move, finding a low-tech solution to a very high-tech problem.
$120 million. That's what a single one of these F-35 jets costs. It's the crown jewel of the most expensive weapons program in human history, a multi-trillion-dollar bet on the idea of being invisible. And that $100 million piece of futuristic tech was taken down by a souped-up missile system from the 1990s. This isn't just about losing an expensive plane. It's a huge blow to the whole idea that having the best tech guarantees you'll win.
And, believe it or not, the F-35 wasn't the only problem. The American air fleet was taking some other pretty big hits. Which brings us to our next number, 12. Yep, in just the first 3 weeks, the U.S. lost 12 of its MQ-9 Reaper drones. That's a workhorse of their fleet and a loss of almost $200 million. For years, people have been warning that these drones, which are pretty slow and not stealthy at all, would be sitting ducks against a serious enemy. Well, Iran just proved them right. That whole aura of American invincibility in the sky was definitely cracking.
But, you know, the trouble wasn't just happening up in the sky. The situation out on the seas, where the U.S. Navy usually rules, was getting, well, you could argue it was even more of a mess.
So leading the charge for the Navy were two giant aircraft carrier groups. The flagship of the fleet, the USS Gerald R. Ford, is the newest, biggest, most expensive warship ever built. We're talking $13 billion of pure American naval power. And what took it out of the fight? A fire that reportedly started in the laundry room. A fire so bad it took 30 hours to get under control and forced this multi-billion-dollar warship to just pull out of the war zone for repairs. Some sources were even whispering that the fire might have been a result of a tired, overworked crew. Can you believe it? The world's greatest warship, taken out not by an enemy missile, but by an accident.
And this wasn't just a one-off fluke. The second carrier group, the one with the USS Abraham Lincoln, was also forced to pull back. Now, the U.S. denies that Iran actually scored a hit, but what we do know for sure is that the entire fleet retreated 1,000 kilometers away from the Iranian coast. They basically moved themselves out of range of Iran's weapons. The most powerful navy in the world
was being forced to keep its distance.
So you've got major problems with offense, both in the air and at sea. But what about defense? What about the expensive shield that was supposed to protect all the U.S. bases and allies in the region? Well, this is where the story goes from bad to worse.
For years, the U.S. has sunk billions of dollars into building this layered defense shield across the Middle East. It's a whole network of the best tech they have: THAAD systems, Patriot missiles, these incredibly powerful radars. On paper, this thing was supposed to be a fortress, basically impenetrable.
But in reality, it fell apart. Iran's strikes were smart. They systematically picked apart this network. They took out critical radar sites, like a billion-dollar installation that acted as the eyes for the whole system. And once the shield was blind, all those American bases and allies were just sitting ducks. The impenetrable shield was shattered.
So when you start adding it all up, devastating losses in the air, a Navy pushed back to a safe distance, a multi-billion-dollar defense system left in ruins, you start to get it. You start to see why the superpower, and not the underdog, is the one asking for a timeout.
And this slide right here really gets to the heart of it all. On the left, you've got a U.S. war effort that seems to have no clear goals, with erratic planning and a total reliance on its expensive toys. And on the right, you have Iran, with a strategy that's been disciplined, focused, and has used what people are calling smart thinking to just completely outmaneuver a much, much stronger opponent.
There's this old saying that just perfectly sums this all up. You can have the biggest, sharpest, most expensive sword in the entire world, but if the person holding it doesn't have a good strategy, it's really just a heavy, useless piece of metal. Technology is an amazing tool, but it is no substitute for a smart game plan. Which really leaves us with one last big question. In this new era of fighting, what actually makes a country a superpower? Is it still about having the biggest budget and the shiniest new toys? Or has the real key to winning shifted to something else entirely? Maybe, just maybe, in the 21st century, the most powerful weapon isn't a stealth fighter or an aircraft carrier, but something much simpler: smart thinking.